Regarding suffering in the human realm, we have covered three fundamental types of suffering: the suffering of change, the suffering upon suffering, and the suffering of everything composite. We have also studied the four great streams of suffering: birth, old age, sickness, and death. We now turn to the four other human sufferings. In today's teaching, I will address the fear of meeting hated enemies. Other human sufferings: the fear of meeting hated enemies. The fear of meeting hated enemies refers to the suffering of wanting to be away from people or things you detest, but having no choice but to confront them. For example, you cannot encounter the lover you long to meet, yet you constantly encounter the enemy you resent. You do not receive the good news you desire, but often hear the bad news you wish to avoid. You wish to be healthy, but you continually fall ill, with no moments of freedom or joy. It is the nature of samsara that undesirable external circumstances frequently arise, while desirable ones rarely manifest, resulting in intense distress. The Abhidharma Mahabhibhasa Sastra states, "When unpleasant circumstances meet with our being, it brings a variety of sufferings. Therefore, it is called the fear of meeting unpleasant circumstances." Unpleasant external circumstances often confront us or appear in front of us, bringing various forms of suffering. This is referred to as the fear of meeting hated enemies. Of course, there are other interpretations of this specific type of suffering. When can we uproot this suffering? It is only when we realize emptiness and fully actualize that the self of the individual and the self of phenomena do not inherently exist. At that time, all our sufferings will be completely gone and none will remain with us. Before that, wherever you are reborn in samsara, you will inevitably experience this type of suffering. Even if you are born in the three higher realms, you will still often encounter things or people you detest, not to mention the hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts of the lower realms. Therefore, in order to be free from such suffering, it is very important to realize emptiness. It says in the records of the Source Mirror, "Without realizing the non-arising, anywhere you are born, there is nothing but hatred, and there is nothing but suffering. If you have not fully realized emptiness, the nature of all phenomena, then, no matter which of the 6 realms you are reborn into, all you experience in that realm is nothing but hatred and suffering." People often complain, "Everything is too complicated here. I have to go somewhere pure and simple." Those who say this do not understand the truth of samsara. If you grasp the reality of samsara, you will know that no matter where you go, there will always be something undesirable occurring. If you are overly attached to these occurrences, you will suffer greatly. It is only when you recognize the nature of samsara that you realize it is not worth feeling distressed about these occurrences. Here is a statement from a book. "I used to be extremely attached to something 10 years ago, which seems quite laughable today. It will be the same 10 years from now when I recall the things I am so attached to today. Therefore, we should always understand the nature of the things to which we are attached during each stage of our lives." This indeed makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, most people do not realize this while they are becoming attached to something. It is only when they look back many years later that they suddenly recognize how laughable the attachment was and begin to feel deeply regretful. According to accounts from some elderly Chinese who served as Red Guards during the Cultural Revolution, they now find their actions at that time to be so crazy, and they do not understand why they did what they did. Although we may not share the same experience, some of our actions may be just as ridiculous as theirs. For example, we were attached to toys in our childhoods and clung to relationships, fame, and wealth in our youth. Only now do we realize the foolishness of our actions as we have become completely entangled and inflicted unnecessary suffering upon ourselves. Additionally, many of us are especially attached to our bodies and external circumstances, believing this is perfectly normal. However, as time passes, our perceptions constantly change as well. In particular, if we correctly understand emptiness, we will find our past actions and thoughts truly laughable because, in fact, nothing inherently exists in this world. Therefore, it is very important to reflect on our own lives to understand the sufferings of the human realm. Many people experience tremendous mental suffering and even plunge themselves into the abyss of despair when they fail to achieve their goals because they have not yet grasped the fundamental nature of life. In fact, such reactions are not necessary at all. Even if you have not fully realized emptiness, as long as you have a basic understanding of the principles of impermanence in human history, along with your own life experiences, you will recognize that the things to which worldly people are particularly attached are nothing but illusions. Of course, before realizing the ultimate truth of all phenomena, we cannot completely abandon our attachments to pain and pleasure. It is only when we eliminate our afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations that we will stop clinging to the I and suffering, and we will not be driven to the 3 lower realms by our karma. We Buddhists must understand this truth very well. However, it is not enough to merely understand it. We should contemplate it word by word, line by line, until we gain practical experience. This process is what is referred to as practicing the Dharma. Many people often say they do not want to engage in hearing and contemplation, and they only want to meditate. In fact, engaging in intensive meditation without sufficient hearing and contemplation is very dangerous. Without a foundation built on hearing and contemplation, how do you know how to meditate and what to meditate on? Some individuals believe that meditation means having no attachment to anything and simply sitting still with eyes closed on a daily basis. Others think they can skip the preceding steps and directly meditate on the most profound teachings in the Vajrayana or Zen schools. While this may work for a few practitioners with exceptional faculties, most practitioners still need to follow a practical sequence. A sequential order is necessary even when we receive a worldly education. In the school system, we start with elementary school, then progress to secondary school, and finally attend university. It is not possible for us to enter a university directly. Spiritual practice is similar, unless you are a practitioner with superior 5 spiritual faculties, allowing you to attain sudden realization upon hearing a simple pith instruction from your guru. But if, through careful self-examination, you realize that you do not possess superior faculties, the most suitable approach for your practice is to begin by studying the doctrines. As you gradually develop intellectual understanding, you can then apply the teachings in practice. By doing so, your mind will gradually transform, and your afflictions will diminish day by day. Many eminent masters of the past also followed this practical sequence and eventually realized the nature of the mind. Therefore, now that the teaching focuses on the common preliminaries, we should carefully meditate on the sufferings in the 6 realms. In particular, the sufferings in the human realm are extensively covered in the sutras. Eminent masters also describe these sufferings in great depth in Shastras. Nevertheless, have we, as subsequent practitioners, contemplated and meditated on those teachings thoroughly? You will find the answer through self-reflection. When it comes to the fear of meeting hated enemies, as Patrul Rinpoche points out, we may spend all our time safeguarding our money and possessions, watching over them day and night. However, eventually, there's no way to prevent losing them to our enemies. For example, in recent years, as Argentina's public security situation has deteriorated, People have become so guarded that many have installed electric grids around their houses to prevent burglary, resembling a prison. They do not wish to do this, but given the social situation, they feel they have no choice but to adopt this extreme measure to protect themselves. The same is true in many cities in the Han region. To safeguard their possessions or even their lives, many households install anti-theft doors and windows. Otherwise, they do not feel safe. Thus, through in-depth contemplation, we realize that wealth and property can be the cause of suffering. When we possess wealth and property, suffering tends to arise. When discussing the fear of meeting hated enemies, Patrul Rinpoche primarily addresses the drawbacks of having wealth and property. From a broader perspective, any unpleasant circumstance, such as encountering troubles or experiencing afflictions, is related to the fear of meeting hated enemies. However, the emphasis here is on wealth and property, as we practitioners should be content with what we have and reduce our desires. While wealth and property can create significant obstacles to our Dharma practice. In pursuit of a livelihood, many of us dedicate our entire lives to work and do not have the opportunity to practice. Even if we guard our wealth day and night, we cannot prevent it from eventually ending up in the hands of our enemies. Thieves during the day, burglars at night, or even wild animals like dogs and wolves can appear unexpectedly and take it from us. The situation can be worse in big cities. According to a news report, in December 2009, a woman was about to make a deposit at an ATM when a man suddenly appeared, pointed a gun at her, and demanded, "Give me the money or I'll kill you." Stunned and terrified, the woman handed over her money, more than Chinese yen 10,000. This incident occurred around 8 p.m., and the man quickly vanished after receiving the cash. As you can see, safety is a significant concern nowadays, and people's money, homes, cars, and other belongings can be taken by robbers at any time. Recently, I hosted a guest from my hometown who works as a janitor for a company in Surtar. According to him, 15 households in the small county of Surtar experienced burglaries in the past month. In some cases, burglars entered homes by prying doors open, while in others, they broke windows. Some households lost between Chinese yuan 70,000 to 80,000, while others lost only a few small items. Such security issues clearly indicate that people are becoming greedier and less moral. Even if we implement various anti-theft measures, burglars can easily circumvent them with more advanced tools, as the old adage goes. As virtue rises 1 foot, evil rises 10. Thus, the world is becoming increasingly dangerous. We may not notice this unless we take a closer look. However, upon careful scrutiny, we find that qualities such as compassion, altruism, and contentment with fewer desires are diminishing, while external desires, ambitions, and malice are growing stronger. As a result, no matter how many law enforcement officers the Public Security Bureau recruits each year, changing the situation remains difficult. Worse yet, sometimes those officers themselves become corrupt and engage in misconduct. In contrast, we practitioners living in remote areas have no worldly goals beyond simple food and clothing. While others may find such a life miserable, our spiritual fulfillment far surpasses that of the millions living in big cities. Therefore, practitioners should regularly engage in self-reflection. What is my life's goal? Why do others act the way they do? What choices should I make and remain committed to? After such reflection, you may easily arrive at the right conclusion. Obviously, the more wealth and possessions we have, the more effort it takes to acquire, protect, and grow them. Nagarjuna states, gathering wealth, guarding it, and trying to grow it will exhaust you. realize that riches only lead to endless problems and harm. Many individuals today are constantly racking their brains, day and night, hoping to become wealthy through their entrepreneurial endeavors. While their intentions seem admirable, only a small fraction of them succeed in amassing wealth. Once they have accumulated some wealth and property, they must guard it against theft. Yet, they are not satisfied with merely protecting their wealth. They also seek to grow it, viewing it as the key to a happy life. Consequently, people toil, dedicating all their time and effort to their wealth and property, unaware that this accumulation holds no real meaning. Instead, it becomes the source of all misfortunes and suffering. Millard Fuller, an American, built significant wealth and property from scratch. By the time he was nearly 30, he had already earned $1 million. He felt his business journey had just begun, and his next goal was to become a multi-millionaire. However, as his wealth continued to increase, he did not feel happy at all. Instead, his health was deteriorating day by day, and his marriage was on the brink of collapse. After careful consideration, he decided to sell his properties and donate the proceeds to churches, schools, and charities. Additionally, he and his wife established a non-profit organization called Habitat for Humanity International, which has built more than 60,000 homes worldwide and provided shelter for over 300,000 people in need. Although Fuller gave up all his wealth and property, he felt he was the richest man in the world. Therefore, even worldly individuals can appear to renounce the pursuit of wealth. However, their renunciation is not based on a complete understanding of the nature of wealth and property. Instead, it's inspired by certain causes and conditions that lead them to realize that wealth cannot bring genuine happiness, prompting them to stop pursuing it. If worldly individuals can renounce wealth, we practitioners, even more so than they, should not become obsessed with wealth and property. A person once told me, when people discuss the faults of money, I do not really understand. Money is a genuine wish-fulfilling jewel. With money in hand, we can eat and travel. These days, whatever we do requires the support of money, so money truly is the wish-fulfilling jewel that grants us everything. According to Buddhism, a practitioner should live a life that avoids both extreme poverty and extreme extravagance. This is the so-called middle way. Therefore, we should often make an aspiration like this: I will be born neither into a super rich nor a very poor family, but into a middling family, so that I can always take my ordination. Regarding the drawbacks of wealth, Milarepa says, at first, wealth brings happiness and envy from others. Yet, no matter how much you possess, it never feels like enough. In the middle, miserliness tightens its grip. You hesitate to spend on offerings or charity. Your wealth attracts enemies and evil forces, and everything you have accumulated is consumed by others. In the end, wealth becomes a demon that jeopardizes your life. How frustrating it is to protect your riches only to benefit your enemies. I have discarded this lure that drags us down into samsara. I desire no more of this devil's temptation. In the beginning, you are happy with your wealth, believing it can fulfill all your needs. Meanwhile, others admire you, saying, "Ah, this person is rich. He can afford to buy a house and a car." Many urban dwellers are busy keeping up with the Joneses. But no matter how much you have, it never seems enough. In the middle, having amassed a certain amount of wealth, you may become so constrained by miserliness that you are unwilling to spend your riches on offerings or charity. Your wealth attracts enemies and negative forces, so when unfavorable circumstances arise, the wealth you have accumulated will be consumed by others. In fact, many people with material affluence spend very little on virtuous causes, but much more on meaningless things. There is always a crowd surrounding these individuals, using their money, and the crowd grows greedier day by day, while these individuals themselves enjoy very little of their wealth. In the end, due to your insatiable greed, you may even covet the wealth and property of your enemies. Wealth transforms into a demon that endangers your life. Therefore, we must cast off this lure that drags us down into samsara and desire no more of this devil's temptation. When Venerable Atisha first came to Tibet to show their respect for the great master, the monks dressed in fine clothes and jewelry to greet him. Upon seeing the monks, Atisha immediately covered his head. The disciples beside him were puzzled and asked why he had done that. Venerable Atisha answered, "The Tibetan devils come to welcome me." The monks felt very ashamed upon hearing Atisha's response, so they quickly removed their magnificent jewelry and put on their monk robes to properly welcome him. Then Atisha happily accepted their veneration. Atisha did this not because he was afraid of coral or agate, but because he was concerned that those monks placed too much importance on wealth. In many sutras, the Buddha describes wealth using similes of poison, fierce fire, and negative forces, warning practitioners not to seek it. Otherwise, he said, it will be like the sharp blade of our enemy, capable of stabbing through our hearts. Therefore, we beings still wandering in samsara must not be tempted by wealth. Otherwise, we will never be liberated from samsara. In fact, whether one can practice well or not is closely tied to one's wealth and possessions. If you do not have much wealth, at least you will have time to practice the Dharma. Conversely, if you are busy managing your wealth, you will not seek liberation at all. I have encountered many wealthy individuals who wish to propagate the Dharma or engage in practice. However, their abundant wealth often leads to numerous responsibilities, causing them to brood during the day and suffer from insomnia at night. Even when they meditate on the difficulty of finding the freedoms and advantages during a retreat, they may close their eyes but cannot stop thinking, "What should I do with this money? How much will the company make this year? Should I send my car for maintenance next month?" Their thoughts revolve entirely around wealth and possessions. In contrast, practitioners living in caves or mountains hardly have to think about worldly matters. Their minds are focused solely on the Dharma and liberation. How wonderful! Thus, it can be very challenging for someone with great material abundance to practice the Dharma. Here is a story I heard. A wealthy man went to a secluded place for a 3-week retreat. However, during those 21 days, he was unable to practice the Dharma and instead continued working on his business projects, juggling 3 mobile phones. If he was so busy in a hermitage, imagine how much more distracted he would be outside of the retreat. I believe you all understand the meager merit such retreat practice yields. Therefore, when a practitioner possesses more, they will inevitably become distracted. Shantideva also says, "The pain of gaining, keeping, and of losing all. See the endless hardships brought on us by property. For those distracted by their love of wealth, there is no chance for freedom from the sorrows of existence." The process of accumulating, preserving, and losing wealth is fraught with immense suffering. Therefore, we must recognize that wealth is the primary source of all afflictions. Those who obsess over trivial pursuits for the sake of financial gain are unable to attain the enlightened mind of the Buddha or achieve the highest level of concentration. When these individuals attempt to meditate and close their eyes, their thoughts are often consumed solely by money. They cannot reach a spiritual state in alignment with the Dharma. Consequently, their liberation remains distant. It may be that due to their merit from previous lives, some people lead lives that are neither poor nor rich, which is conducive to their Dharma practice. I rejoice in some Dharma friends at Larungar who enjoy sufficient provisions without excess. Their monthly stipend is just enough, isn't it? A person's suffering increases as their possessions increase. As stated in the letter to a friend, kind sir, to own a lot brings so much misery. There's no such grief for those with few desires. The more the Naga lords possess of heads, the more their headaches, the more they have of cares. For example, if you owned a horse, you would constantly worry about it being stolen or taken by an enemy, or whether it had enough hay to eat. A single horse can cause a great deal of stress. If you had a sheep, you would face the troubles that come with owning a sheep. Even if all you owned was a bag of tea, you would still encounter the issues associated with a bag of tea. Therefore, our sufferings have a direct correlation to the extent of our wealth and possessions. If you have one bag of tea, you may not experience much misery. But if you own a house, a car, or a plane, things are quite different. Many wealthy Americans have private jets, yet the misery in their minds often seems even greater than the jets. When the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche visited America, he once flew in a private jet owned by a well-off elderly couple. Their daughter had married a tulku. The husband frequently bragged about his jet, saying, "My plane is this or that." His wife grew impatient and would respond, "You are so old now, your hair is all gray, and you are still talking about the plane." The husband retorted, "What about our cars and our plane?" It is said that the couple often quarreled over their wealth and possessions. Worldly people lead very stressful lives. If you have an ordinary car, you typically do not spend much on repairs and maintenance, and you do not normally worry too much about it. But if you have $1 million car, even a small scratch can cost a fortune to repair. Adding expenses such as gas and tolls, your monthly spending on the car can be quite significant. In addition to luxury cars, people also enjoy purchasing luxury homes. However, the more expensive the house, the more money one must spend on it, and the greater the financial burdens one has to bear. Unfortunately, many people fail to recognize this. Instead, they perceive the suffering caused by accumulating wealth as happiness. How absurd. On the other hand, true practitioners have few desires in life. The only thing they value is a carefree and peaceful mind. Patrul Rinpoche used to travel everywhere with two of his gurus, Jigme Gyalwe Nugu and Jigme Ngotsar Gyatso. They dressed in rags and begged along the road like vagabonds. Once, when a herdsman living in a remote area died, his family could not find any monks nearby. Noticing that the three of them were wearing monastic robes, the family invited them to their home to offer the deliverance service for the deceased. The three great masters arrived at the home of the deceased and began preparing for the deliverance service. At that time, the young daughter of the family returned. When she saw Patrul Rinpoche making tormas in front of the stove, she thought, "My family is so unfortunate that we invite these vagabonds to conduct the deliverance service." Then the daughter kicked him hard and said angrily, "Get out." Patrul Rinpoche simply smiled at her rudeness, as if nothing had happened, and continued making tormas. After making the tormas, they began to chant the deliverance liturgy with compassion. Once the service was over, the Brahma aperture of the deceased opened, and an auspicious sign for the transference of consciousness occurred. Seeing this, the family was so delighted that they offered 3 horses and a yak to the great masters. Patrul Rinpoche replied, "We do not need any offerings. If we have 3 horses, we will have 3 horses worth of trouble." the head of the family suddenly realized that the three monks were quite extraordinary. So he asked for their names. Patrul Rinpoche mentioned the names of his two gurus, but did not reveal his own name. This story can be found in the brief biography of Patrul Rinpoche, which you can read at your convenience. From Patrul Rinpoche's own life, we can see that he not only encouraged others to be content with few desires, but also engaged in ascetic practices himself. In fact, many can talk about being content with few desires, but very few can truly live by that principle. Therefore, we should follow in the footsteps of the lineage masters and simplify our lives to become genuine Dharma practitioners. In his book, The World as I See It, Albert Einstein states, "I am strongly drawn to the simple life. I also consider that plain living is good for everybody, physically and mentally." It is truly remarkable that a scientist like him could possess this understanding and strive to lead as simple a life as possible. Recently, a wealthy businessman in Austria donated his substantial fortune of 3 million euros to charity and moved to a small mountain chalet, embracing a simple lifestyle. This change occurred because he realized that wealth could no longer bring him happiness. Some worldly individuals like him have never received the Dharma teaching on being content with few desires. Yet through self-reflection and their own wisdom, they recognize the true nature of wealth. President George Washington once remarked that wealth and fame can only bring us pain, not happiness. Many people grasp this concept and ultimately relinquish everything they own. However, many urban dwellers do not share this understanding. They are completely convinced that greater material affluence and a more luxurious lifestyle lead to increased happiness. If you tell such a person about the drawbacks of money, they may think you are disparaging the wish-fulfilling jewel and respond, "You mean money is not good?" No, it is money. They fail to recognize that if a person owns nothing, they will not be troubled by enemies and can live carefree wherever they go. They can simply leave their door open and be away for as long as they wish. As an old adage states, without wealth, there are no enemies. It is a great happiness to be in such a state. According to the accounts in the record of the exalted acts of Buddhist monks, Chan Master Xuanlang of the Tang dynasty lived in a small room, wore a monastic robe for over 40 years, and had only one piece of furniture for sitting and sleeping throughout his life. He would not light a candle unless he needed to read scriptures, and he would not take a single step unless it was to venerate the Buddha. Aside from chanting prayers and mantras, he did not engage in any unnecessary gossip. As stated in the Precious Treasury of Pith Instructions, there are 6 ways to train in what is by nature excellent. By eliminating physical actions that are based on confusion. By eliminating meaningless talk. By eliminating the thoughts proliferating and dissolving in your mind. By eliminating your impulsive fascination with sense pleasures. By eliminating associations that cause distraction and instead dissipating busyness. By eliminating attempts to win over others' minds. Whoever trains in these ways will put the sacred Dharma into practice as is intended. How wonderful it would be if we could rid ourselves of all misdeeds related to body, speech, and mind, and if all our actions were centered around the Dharma instead of worldly, meaningless deeds. However, many people find this difficult. 80% of what they say is meaningless and even harmful. 80% of what they do is meritless and even ill-intended. 80% of what they think consists of deluded thoughts involving either inward or outward distractions. Thus, ordinary people face many problems that need solving, so we should not expect to attain realization after practicing for just a few days. Often, someone complains I have been practicing refuge for 100 days, so why haven't I attained any realization? Such a thought is quite naive. Dharma practice is a long journey, so do not rush for accomplishment. Although I do not wish to proclaim myself as a highly skilled practitioner, I have nonetheless gained some experience in my Dharma practice over the years. A teacher becomes familiar with their students' mindsets after 20 or 30 years of teaching. I completely understand that a novice monastic or a new refuge taker is eager to attain realization, but you cannot expect too much by saying, "I chanted the Vajrasattva mantra all night, yet I neither received any dream signs nor had a vision of Vajrasattva." Why? Is it because I have heavy karmic debts? Or I haven't acted properly? Could you please give me some guidance, my dear Guru? Do not be too hasty. To summarize, there are many kinds of suffering related to the fear of encountering hated enemies. The Sutra of Right Mindfulness of Dharma states, "The fear of encountering what one hates is like fierce fire and poisons. The suffering that arises from it is beyond verbal expression." The fear of meeting hated enemies is a type of suffering associated with experiences you truly wish to avoid. For example, although it is unwished for, a house may burn down, the body may be poisoned, or you may encounter an enemy you do not want to see. What often occurs is the opposite of what we truly desire. This is the nature of samsara. Knowing this, we do not need to complain or even criticize the law of karma by saying, "What bad luck? Why do I always get a bump on the head and bleed after doing something good, while others receive no punishment for doing something bad?" Who says that causes lead to corresponding effects? The law of karma doesn't exist at all. This argument is particularly concerning. As you should know, natural law underlies all phenomena, and it is only when causes and conditions ripen that the effects arise. Therefore, you should not focus solely on the momentary experiences of happiness and pain. While reflecting on our own thoughts, we practitioners should also understand how causes and conditions operate in this world. Otherwise, it's easy for us to develop wrong views about the authentic Dharma. Of course, wrong views arise from ignorance. The Sutra on the Question of Maitreya states, "You shouldn't hate the Dharma because of your hatred for someone. You should not blame the Dharma for the faults of someone. You shouldn't resent the Dharma because of your resentment towards someone." In fact, the Dharma is completely correct. It is just that sometimes the practitioner has not fully assimilated this yet. Similarly, if we do not acknowledge the supreme teachings of the Buddha, we may be merely monastics or lay practitioners in name, but not in reality. You may think you are doing well, but your path may already be diverging in another direction. Now we stand at the crossroads of life, with one path leading to eternal darkness and the other to bright happiness. It is entirely up to us to choose which way to go. All the Dharma friends present here have generated bodhicitta. Monastics surely do not cling to worldly life, and their sole task is to study and practice the authentic Dharma. Lay practitioners should also reduce their attachments to worldly life. After studying the Buddha's teachings, one lay practitioner told me, "I am now a pure layman without concerns, clinging, obstacles, or attachment. I do not say this to praise myself carelessly. I possess a few good qualities. First, since I embarked on the path, I have never quarreled with my family, including my parents and my son. Second, since I began this journey, I have not watched TV, films, soap operas, or even the news. Third, since I started on this path, I have never engaged in meaningless activities, such as wandering in a shopping mall. Because of these choices, I feel I am doing quite well." If an urban dweller can achieve this, we monastics living in a secluded place should be even more capable. It is no small feat for you, the members of the Sangha at Larangar, to forego everything, including your families, and come here to practice the Dharma. When I look at you, I often think, these people truly have the root of merit. They are remarkable. Before your ordination, each of you was a cherished child to your parents. For years, your parents placed their hopes in you, but when you grew up, you chose ordination and shaved your head. In this situation, your parents will probably shed tears in their hearts, which gradually dissolve into their bloodstream. However, the teardrops are virtuous. As you progress on the path, your parents will undoubtedly receive the benefits. Therefore, regardless of whether you are a monastic or a lay practitioner, I hope you will not live a conflicting lifestyle. The opportunity to study the Dharma is extremely rare. If you stand at a crossroads in a city, you will see crowds of people coming and going, of whom not even 1 in 10,000 studies the Dharma. Even fewer generate a virtuous thought that lasts as briefly as a lightning bolt and can ultimately forego everything to devote themselves to the practice of Mahayana Buddhism in a pure Buddhist center. Take time to reflect on the importance of living peacefully, remembering the saying, "Without wealth, there are no enemies." Let the stories of the past Buddhas inspire you, and work on letting go of your attachment to money and possessions. Live simply, like the birds that rely on what they find, and dedicate yourself fully to practicing the Dharma. Of course, it is not entirely realistic for a practitioner to be like a bird that only searches for food to sustain one day of living. However, practitioners should emulate their predecessors who prepared food for winter in the summer, engaged in retreat practice during winter, and then asked for alms again the following year. The Gateway to Training the Mind states that faithful practitioners will not have great difficulty making a living. Therefore, you should be content with few desires and strive to live a simple life, as expressed in the letter to a friend. Of all great wealth, contentment is supreme, said he who taught and guided gods and men. So always be content, if you know this, yet have no wealth. True riches you will have found. You should contemplate and meditate repeatedly on this teaching.